This video and all other videos on this channel are for entertainment purposes only. The content of this video and all other videos on this channel are the opinions of the creator only and do not constitute legal, trading, investment, or financial advice of any kind. Investing carries a high level of risk and the majority of retail clients lose money. Do not invest any capital unless you understand the risks and you are prepared to lose it all. Alright, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel and welcome to the week. Welcome to Monday. Now, this week, laser focus is required. I believe this is the week that we can start to truly hunt for genuine cycle lows to be put in, real breakouts. I think any breakouts that occur, especially late this week or early next week, we can start to say, yeah, that is a breakout to be respected. That's where you're going to see me, as promised, as I've been talking about and hyping up for weeks and weeks and weeks, get underneath some longs, set public stop loss and invalidation levels so we can't possibly cheat or tell you after the fact. And we're going to continue to hunt this doubling down in the price of Bitcoin. So we have finally entered the timing window as of this week. I'll show you in detail when we get to the charts section at the end as always. For the rest of today's episode, I'm going to jump around quite a bit, okay? There's not really going to be much flow, I don't think. We're just going to kind of point at something and say, that looks pretty wild, and then point at something seemingly unrelated and continue to do so. There's going to be coverage of gold. There's going to be coverage of MicroStrategy, because I want to set a very, very clear binary situation for MicroStrategy. There's going to be some speculation for what if we're in some of the most bullish conditions we've ever seen. I'm going to touch on that briefly. And then I'm going to point at some unemployment ideas I've started to entertain in the last couple of days. So without further ado, make sure you're subscribed so you can follow along and watch me hit these cycle low trades in real time in front of everybody. And other than that, let's get into it. Kicking things off with gold. What's happening in London is going to happen here. Okay, London's bluff is being called. The banks are not solvent and gold is not to hand. This may well lead to the end of the UK. I don't know if I agree with that. Okay, to be completely honest, I think this might be a bit hyperbolic, but we are certainly seeing a run on the bullion vaults as we continue to cover. And over the last couple of days, a lot of people have been tagging me in this kind of thing. A lot of people have been pointing at this and saying that perhaps this new government and his new right-hand man are going to try to audit Fort Knox and see how much gold they've really got and all this kind of thing. And it's led to a lot of speculation, okay, particularly amongst Bitcoiners. They're saying things like they're going to audit Fort Knox. And then they're going to reveal, allegedly, according to the speculators out there, that there is actually less gold in the vaults than claimed, just like what we're seeing in London. The speculation is that therefore people will become aware China and Russia have more gold than the US, perhaps leading therefore to an emergency order for a strategic Bitcoin reserve. The printer goes burr, US buys as much Bitcoin as it can get its hands on, the price of gold collapses in Bitcoin terms, China and Russia realize that Trump got the jump on them and start to acquire Bitcoin, price of gold collapses further, Peter Schiff admitted to a mental hospital. I mean, this all sounds really good, doesn't it? Especially if you're a Bitcoin maxi and you want to stroke it to the idea that everything is going to get burnt down around you so that you and your Bitcoin stack can benefit. Okay, a lot of people are like that. They want to burn the entire world down just so their Bitcoin stack can go up in fiat terms. Okay, but let's be honest. Again, let's be a little bit more reasonable about this, okay? Let's just have a quick think and engage the critical thought side of our brain here, okay? Number one, they will not audit it. Okay, and I'm going to give you, if you stay to the end, I'm going to leave you a breadcrumb trail to go and find out what I know, okay? But let me tell you, number one, they're not going to audit it, okay? Government and the president are far too low down the power chain for anyone to get inside of Fort Knox, okay? They do not have the ability to go and audit this thing, okay? We have to start being more realistic. Again, I'll leave you a breadcrumb trail at the end so you can go and see what I'm talking about. Whether you believe me or not, whether you fall on the tinfoil hat side of this Crack Pipe Monday episode or not, okay? Let's say the government does audit them. Are you going to trust what they say? Is this going to be the first time in history that we say, yeah, the government, they're not going to lie, right? Why would they? They're going to do an audit and they're going to tell us the truth. They're going to tell us exactly how much gold is in there and exactly how much chicanery and fraudulent behavior has been going on over the past 100 odd years, right? Do you really think that's the case? Are we all of a sudden going to say, yeah, well, we'll just take it at face value now? They couldn't possibly lie again. Right? They couldn't possibly have an ulterior motive this time around. No, because our new pseudo-father figures are here for us to kneel before with our arms in the air and beg for them to save us. Please, Daddy, save me from the world. Okay, we have to stop doing this. These people are all inside of the same club. These people are not your father figure. They are not going to come and save you like the panicked and scared emotional toddler that you are. These people are part of the same team as the ones you think they are saving us from. And remember, both sides serve the same masters. Okay, again, we have to start being more realistic. This whole idea of, oh, you know, they're going to audit the gold and all the corruption's going to be exposed. They are part of the corruption, okay? Again,
There is something wrong with me. I come on here with a positive mental attitude, like, let's go. I'm so excited about the week. Within minutes, here I am screaming at you about how the world is all pony show and how none of it's real and blah, blah, blah. Take it or leave it, right? Sometimes I get fired up about this stuff. Let's try and bring this thing down to earth as we approach the cycle low trades and all that kind of thing. American and Chinese printers are going burr, okay? Something big is coming. Now, I don't know if I agree necessarily that the printers are going burr. If you think about what this really is, then it's not really printing, okay? But it is a base layer monetary supply expansion. And usually that is synonymous with Bitcoin moving higher. Makes perfect sense. We're about to find a weekly cycle low and start to push one final time. So this is in our favor, okay? That's on our side. And as we know, we got a weekly cycle low, I wanted to cover MicroStrategy. Something I did not anticipate here was that institutions would be buying this weekly cycle low. Okay, we've seen $445 billion national bank just buy over $500 million worth of MicroStrategy. And at the same time, we also got the second largest pension fund in the US also holding a huge position in MicroStrategy. Okay, pretty crazy. And on top of that, JP Morgan added another 100 million of MicroStrategy, bringing their total to around 300 million, right into that weekly cycle low. So let's really think about what's going on here. As Bitcoin is setting up for that weekly cycle low, we've got institutions deciding that right in here seems like a pretty sweet spot to acquire MicroStrategy, which makes me think there's an outside chance here that we're about to deviate away from this fractal. I covered this extensively for members, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but what I wanted to make sure that you're aware of is as Bitcoin finds its weekly cycle low, this is the absolute last chance saloon for MicroStrategy to make a new high, okay? Whether it makes a timing-based low here and then pushes up, or whether this thing continues to follow, roughly speaking, weekly cycle low and reversal, that weekly cycle low must, and I do mean must, resolve to a new all-time high, or else that top is 100% confirmed. And for me, it's not really about MicroStrategy. Since I've already nailed down my gains, I'm happy to walk away and focus on other things, right? So I don't really care whether this thing does another 200 or 300% from here or not. But one thing I do really care about is if this weekly cycle does not resolve to a new high, then of course it will continue to, roughly speaking, follow this yellow fractal. And of course, the implications for this are sinister, because that's exactly what we saw last time around. At the green down the bottom is MicroStrategy. Notice the divergence. It puts in a lower high, whilst Bitcoin puts in higher highs. This is because MicroStrategy front-run the upcoming bull run for Bitcoin, and the institutions used all of this as distribution before they truly topped the Bitcoin market and marked them both down very, very severely at the same time. So again, whether you're bullish, bearish, whether you're in or out of this market is irrelevant, because the real use case here is not to try to catch a pump, is not necessarily to say, well, yeah, weekly cycle low and let's get long out of there. By all means do that from a trade setup perspective. But the real important piece of information here is, like I said, if this does not resolve immediately to new highs, okay, then the setup, especially given all that institutional demand and volume, is going to look exactly like this, which is divergent, lower highs with higher highs, telling us that the top for Bitcoin is just around the corner. So by all means, play the bounce out of this weekly cycle low. If it's a timing-based low, it will look something like this, okay, hoping for a new all-time high. And if you get a plunge to a new lower low, then by all means play the swing with a stop below the low, and again, hope that we get a new all-time high. But again, and this is why I'm bringing this up, if what we get here is a kind of lackluster bounce to a lower high relative to these highs, okay, and most importantly, we do not smash through the prior all-time high, then by the time we get some kind of trend line breakdown, let's move this so we're really clear, okay, by the time we find a weekly cycle low, draw a trend line here and get a breakdown, by the time this occurs, we would expect to see the top come in for Bitcoin. We would also expect to see MicroStrategy now head down towards that hyperwave target of $35. And all of this is going to occur on mass confusion, because people will be saying things like, but how can that happen? Because it's holding X amount of Bitcoin. That means it will be trading well below its NAV, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's what happens when stuff gets panic sold, okay? We can't expect to use any kind of valuation model. We can't expect investors to be logical here and say, well, it couldn't possibly trade that low since it holds all this Bitcoin. It absolutely can, and it will trade significantly to the downside. Up here, it was trading significantly above its NAV. And now it's only reasonable to expect it, if, of course, this weekly cycle low does not yield a new all-time high, to expect the thing to break down and target 35-ish bucks into that 4-year cycle low. So again, it's business, it's not personal. It does not matter about being right or wrong. If you're bullish, then you stay long if you're already in. And if you want to, you add out of a weekly cycle low here, looking for new highs, or you add a timing-based low as it occurs towards the end of the week or early next week. And again, you look for new highs. But if you're smart, then what you really focus on is whether or not we do make a new high versus divergent highs. Because if we make divergent highs, the setup is identical, not just from a fractal perspective, but also from a higher highs versus lower highs perspective, meaning that the idea that this was front running the forward coming bull market for Bitcoin, i.e. this is already priced in 200k Bitcoin and is now distributing off, would absolutely stand. So it's very, very binary. Weekly cycle low and new high, happy days, big rip roaring bull market, no need to entertain tops coming in soon for Bitcoin. But weekly cycle low that resolves to a lower high, and that's it. We have to start looking for true tops across Bitcoin, altcoins, everything, right? So that's where the real alpha comes. Use this not only as a tool to play the weekly cycle low if you're bullish, but as a tool to tell you whether or not it's time to start looking for true ultimate tops of this 4-year cycle to come in for Bitcoin. As promised, we're going to continue to jump around here. Okay, the Kingdom of Bhutan now holds over $1 billion in Bitcoin. So nation states are now here. And they're here in size. What if all of this stuff is just going to continue to get more and more and more bullish? I wanted to run through an idea that I haven't really entertained, to be completely honest, but anything and everything is on the table all the time in markets. What if this really is the roaring 20s that we're quite early in? In the late 1910s towards the 1920s, we had this whole Spanish flu thing, right? Kind of similar. And then look what happened. The roaring 20s unfolds all the way into the end of the decade. And it's not until 1929 that we get the true top come in. Is it possible that what we're experiencing at the moment is this? Is it possible that we're only about here and we've got a full 5 years of upside bull market ahead of us up only? Is this possible? Because my goodness, if it is, times are going to be insanely wild for investors and traders. Now, again, it's not my base case by any means. By any stretch of the imagination, I struggle to comprehend a world that we can do this for 5 years, but we always have to be open to all possible outcomes, right? And of course, the question is, if this is on the table, and I don't think it is personally, but let's just entertain for the sake of argument, it is on the table. The question, of course, most people want to know is what would happen to Bitcoin? And this just might be the answer. Now, to update this chart, of course, we kind of put in a bear market. We're now right around 100K around 2025. So we're actually on track for this. Some kind of, I don't know, doubling up here, 200K, bear market, and then some left translated cycle to $1 million. We could well be pretty much on track for this, just based on my cycle theory expectations, out into around 2028, sometime around here. Okay, that to me does not seem impossible by any stretch of the imagination. And then the question becomes what happens after there. Now, I kind of think that we would deviate away at this point, but maybe, just maybe, something more like this is on the table. Who knows? I don't think anyone should be cheering this on because I think that would actually speak to the total destruction of fiat currencies, probably hyperinflation, some very nasty things. I don't think we should be, again, sinking the ship to test the life rafts. But it probably is a non-zero probability. So we've now covered quite a lot in a single episode, right? We got ranty about the London bank runs. We've covered MicroStrategy and using it as a barometer for bull markets. We've got nation states entering as well as institutions entering into MicroStrategy shares. We've covered the absolute super duper uber bullish case here, okay, in which we are very, very early in a very, very, very long and powerful uptrend. And before we go to set up some of these charts, I wanted to point at one more thing, okay, because Doge is now starting to lay off government employees. And one thing that was propping up all of the unemployment data is that the government kept adding loads and loads and loads of jobs, right? Jobs were declining everywhere apart from in the government. And inside of the government, they were adding loads and loads and loads of jobs. But now Doge has come along and is starting to lay off some of these government jobs, telling us that there's no other way now to plug the holes in the unemployment data. So all of those deep dives I keep doing, where the unemployment data doesn't look so bad, it's only when you scratch below the surface and start to look at other metrics, you go, something about this doesn't add up. Well, what if the tide is about to go out and we're about to find out who has been swimming naked? What if, as these government layoffs continue to increase, we're going to start to see the true turn up and curl ups in unemployment? Are we going to start to cross truly recessionary levels? Going to be very, very interesting to continue to follow these deep dives over the weekend and see what happens to the labour market and if it continues to deteriorate in line with my expectations. So as promised, we're going to head into the week and set up these trades. Okay, we know that we are getting dangerously close to a daily and a weekly cycle low potentially for the dollar. And so far, we have not been able to observe a significant decline and a big downside flush, telling me at least to keep an open mind about seeing a resumption of relative dollar strength here over the coming weeks. I've also been noting a lot of people calling or attempting to call tops in the gold and silver markets. I don't believe it personally. I think we're going to get a pullback into a daily cycle low. That's why this is queued here, due early March. And then I think you're going to see me get long, move stops up and add an increased exposure, expecting resumption of the primary uptrend. I do not think this is done yet. I think this has much more of a squeeze left ahead of it. Time will tell as always. I also think once we found this daily cycle low, it's do or die time to see the likes of silver and some of these miners really start to outperform and out-accelerate the upside seeing in gold. So we'll find out if that's true. For now, though, the plan remains the same. We'll wait for that daily cycle low early March or perhaps very, very late February. And then that, again, will be an area for me to increase exposure and move some stops up. For the stock market, it all seems to be going according to plan so far, right? We found some half cycle lows. We're looking for a push. And again, that daily cycle low synced up for early March. And that will be used by me to get to full exposure. We did start to add more exposure in the member section late last week via the NASDAQ as it's experiencing nice breakouts. So happy days there. And of course, the big enchilada is Bitcoin. And Bitcoin continues to play ball for us. It continues to give me quite a nice setup. I'm very, very excited about this because it's nice when things go exactly in your favor and as per your expectations. Today marks day 49 by my count, if my count is correct, which I think it is, which means we officially enter the timing window on the 22nd of February. So as we start to approach late this week, any breakout that we experience here is for real. I still hope what we get is a nice flush to the downside below all of these lows. That makes it very, very easy for me to identify. But if what we get here is a timing based low and we do something like this and then just blast off, then that breakout for me is to be respected. And again, in the level 3 member section, we will set up a bunch of crypto related equity trades as well to extract extra beta from the market. So keeping it super simple, follow along, make sure you're subscribed, notifications on, watch me do this in real time, watch me call out a public stop loss and invalidation level. Now, as promised, I'm going to leave you a quick breadcrumb trail for all the Bitcoiners that, like I say, are stroking it to the... I got to stop using that analogy. All these Bitcoiners that are salivating over the idea, okay, that we're just going to print and sink the ship and hope the life rafts hold us up, right? And, oh, yeah, gold is going to be demonetized and, oh, you know, strategic reserve, all of this stuff. And our pseudo father figures are going to come in and audit the gold and all this kind of thing. All right. For those of you that want to do some digging, here's what you can go and press, okay? You will need to press the algorithm for this. If you just do one Google search, it will turn up what it wants you to see. You have to press the algorithm in the Google search or in any kind of search multiple times. And then what you will notice is once it detects that you are seeking truth instead of just a quick answer, it will start to return you different results. So make sure you push and press the algorithm so that it knows you are seeking truth rather than a quick fix. But you can go and look into the idea, which of course many of the mainstream outlets are now telling you is fake. The US military took and seized all the Vatican's gold. Okay, so again, I'm leaving you a breadcrumb trail here. Do not take my word for it. Go and do your own digging. At the same time, you might say, well, I mean, there's no evidence of this, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But it just so happens, purely by coincidence, I'm sure, that right after all that gold was seized from the Vatican, okay, one of the richest institutions in the world, which, by the way, is a non-international territory. Again, I'm leaving you that breadcrumb trail to go and do the work. Okay, you can look into this just like the City of London is not actually part of the UK. The City of London is an international territory that does not answer to the rules of the UK. And the Vatican falls into this as well. And like I said, it just so happens by sheer coincidence, okay, that shortly after all that gold was seized, which of course, let's be honest, is totally fake news, that the head of the Catholic Church and the Vatican is heading towards bankruptcy. Kind of weird, right? Kind of weird. It's also kind of weird that many of the other Catholic churches are also heading towards bankruptcy. That's all I have to say. I hope you like this episode of Crack Pipe Monday. Don't bother asking me any questions, okay? I don't have the answers for you. This is up to you, okay? Take it, leave it, write me off as insane. I don't care, frankly, okay? That's not my job. My job is to find the cycle lows, and that bit I can promise you we're going to do this week. So stay tuned. God bless. Trade safe. I'm your boy Camel. Peace.
Camel Finance, he's the man to see. Rocking the markets with his contrarian spree. Trades like a pro, no fear, no shame. Sticking to his guns in his money game. He's a badass, oh yes indeed. Camel Finance got the markets key, taking us normies on